Inquest into the deaths of Nobel Peace Prize laureate Chief Albert Luthuli and prominent human rights lawyer Mlungisi Griffiths Mxenge began yesterday at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, bringing renewed focus to the circumstances surrounding the decades-old deaths. The National Prosecuting Authority revealed it has evidence indicating that a false account was given regarding Chief Luthuli's death. Meanwhile, the inquest into Mxenge's death has been postponed until June. ANC stalwart Jeff Radebe attended the hearings, and he joins us now via video link to share his insight on these important developments. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Listening into the presentation, the opening remarks by the NPA looking into the evidence that they have been able to find so far. One of them is, amongst others, yes, there were injuries, but the injuries that were sustained by Chief Albert Luthuli are not consistent with him being struck by a train or goods train, but they are consistent with him being defensive, meaning that at the time he was actually trying to defend himself. What does this moment mean for the nation, but more specifically for your fellow comrades?
Much, Adrian, for inviting me to your show this morning. Yesterday began what we believe will be the revelation of our President General Chief Albert Luthuli. We believe, as we did at that time, that the so-called goods train nation of the President General of the ANC, who was at the justice and freedom for all. So the revelation started yesterday with the opening statement by the lead prosecutor, Mr. Dunya, and also the two witnesses, expert witness, highlight the fact that the apartheid regime was characterized by deep secrecy, even involving officers of the court. So injustice, justice was a casualty in this case. So we believe that eventually the nation, but more particularly the Luthuli family, will know the actual truth of what happened.
Yeah, and watching some people commenting on this inquest, and the question that they have is, why does it matter? What is it that will be achieved from this particular inquest? What would you say is the importance of this matter?
Its importance lies in the fact that eventually the truth will be revealed, so that the historic record must be corrected that Chief Albert Luthuli, a Nobel Peace Laureate, did not die accidentally, but was killed by the racist regime, because that was the pattern during those dark days of the evil system of apartheid that had been declared by the United Nations a crime against humanity and a threat to world peace, so that eventually we can be able to know that that narrative that had been permeated the world has been erased.
Yeah. Part of the initial inquest that was done and the finding thereof was that there was no criminality. If indeed it is found through this inquest that there was criminality, how then do you bring to book people that would have committed a crime that happened in 1967, if those people are still even alive, and being able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that those people should be convicted?
Well, that's a very valid point, Adrian, but we know now, because yesterday the lead prosecutor, Mr. Dunya, was able to give us a letter that was written by the so-called magistrate in 1967, who pronounced on the innocence on the issue of this murder to the then minister, to the then Secretary of Justice, may I call him the Secretary of Injustice, indicating that there was also collusion by the so-called officers of the court, even though that Mr. Boswell is dead, but the truth will prevail in this inquest.
Yeah. Let me ask you, as a former Justice and Constitutional Development Minister, an ANC stalwart as well, considering that these suspicions have always been there, that there would have been foul play in the death of Chief Albert Luthuli. Why was it so difficult to institute an inquest back then already and not wait up until 2019 when we had that the representations that were given by Christopher Rollins to the current NDPP? Why was it so difficult back then to deal with this matter?
Well, it's regrettable that it has taken so long, because you remember 1994, we got our political independence and the President Mandela instituted the commission of inquiry led by the Archbishop Tutu, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But it took a very dedicated search by the National Prosecuting Authority, but more particularly by this expert witness, as we're going to be seeing in Pietermaritzburg today until about 2 weeks to come, of how the scene was staged by the then apartheid regime. You must remember, Adrian, that we're talking about 1967, where the apartheid regime was collaborating with other oppressive regimes, such as the Portuguese fascist regime in Portugal that was oppressing our people in Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau. So we are happy, therefore, that eventually, even more than 58 years ago, we will know the actual truth, what transpired.
All right. And finally, we heard yesterday on the appointment of Mcebisi Jonas, the special envoy to the U.S. appointed by the president. As somebody who also has done work around being a special envoy, what would you say some of the critical aspects are in trying to mend relationships between South Africa and the job that lies ahead for Mcebisi Jonas?
Well, it is important, being a special envoy of the president to the Great Lakes region, to ensure that the relationship between the United States of America and South Africa must be maintained, taking into account that America, in particular, is our second biggest trading partner, and its play in world affairs. It is important that we normalize these relations for people-to-people relations, but more particularly in terms of trade relations, because we rely to a large extent to export and imports from the United States of America and the world economy as a whole.
Yeah, and the wisdom, perhaps maybe if you'd like to touch on that, if possible at all, around going the special envoy route for now, up until I guess maybe the storm has subsided, and only at a later stage get a new ambassador who would replace Ambassador Rasool.
To get into the wisdom of and of why he took this route, but being a private citizen, the difficulty around of the former ambassador, it needed some time for the president on the kind of ambassador that Washington, D.C., but in the meantime, relations have to continue and they play a very important strategic role, because special envoy as well, president directly head of state.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Jeff Radebe, the member of the ANC, speaking there on the reopening of an inquest into the death of Chief Albert Luthuli.